Okay, so I thought I would just give you a brief tutorial on one of the apps that can be used for doing retail arbitrage, selling Amazon FBA. So if you have an Android, that's what I'm working on. It's going to be similar if you have an iPhone or iOS device. But first thing would be to enter the Play Store. And then you would search for Scoutify. I had just done a search previous, so it's already kind of come up here. So I'm going to go ahead and just click search. You can see it listed here at the beginning. Now again, there are multiple apps for this. And this one, I'll admit, doesn't get the best reviews, but there are some things about this app that I like and that I find very convenient. I haven't tried any of the other apps more recently, and so it's possible that some of them may have improved and have added some of the features that I liked about Scoutify. But in truth, because I don't do really much retail arbitrage anymore, because we've kind of moved on to more profitable methods of using Amazon FBA, I haven't really concerned myself with it. But again, all of the apps are relatively similar in terms of how they function. So let's go ahead and open up Scoutify. And in all of the apps, basically you're going to have this option of scanning or searching. So you could either, in the search box, you could type in something that you're looking for. So, you know, in this case, maybe, you know, what I have in front of me is Nature's Bakery fig bars. So you could search by keywords. This one didn't come up, not sure why. You could type in the UPC code, or you can click on scan up in the upper right here. And then now you can see here, these are the fig bars that I'm talking about. Okay, and then down here is the UPC. You can see it grabbed it. Once it grabs the UPC, then it's going to bring up a listing. Sometimes it'll bring up multiple listings and you have to choose the one that fits what you're looking for. Generally speaking, when that happens, it's because there are sellers who are selling what are called multi-packs or single packs. So they may be selling one box of the fig bars, but they could also bundle together multiple boxes of the fig bars and sell those under a separate listing, and so those would come up separately. You also might have people who bundle the fig bars with something else that would be complementary, some other item, and so that's called a bundle versus a multi-pack. When you bundle with complementary items, you call those bundles, and that can be a useful and profitable way to do retail arbitrage sometimes, but we'll talk about that in a different video. But you just want to make sure you choose the right one. If Scoutify or the other apps bring up multiple listings, make sure you're choosing the one that is what you plan to do, if you're sending in singles or multiples or a bundle of some sort or whatever. And you can also create your own listing if there isn't one to fit what it is that you're trying to accomplish. But here you can see that this is in the grocery category. You can see what the sizing of the option is. Large, standard. Basically, Amazon has multiple sizing tiers. So if you're an FBA customer, the charge for shipping these items to your customers from Amazon warehouses is to some degree based on the sizing tier. And so the larger the sizing tier, if it was, you know, you've got large standard, then you've got I think small oversize and then large oversize. They change them periodically, but basically those are to establish what your shipping costs would be. Now, also you have the rank here. What that means is that within the grocery category, there are 900 other products that sell faster than this one. But that's generally pretty good. There's not nearly as many items in the grocery category as many of the other categories, but still a ranking of 900 is actually a very good ranking. You can see here there are 11 offers. Now this isn't always completely accurate, but it is at least a relative comparison from one item to another in terms of the number of sellers that have an offer on this listing. Now you can also see here that the FBA price is $21. Now FBA, of course, refers to Fulfillment by Amazon, and that is sellers who who are selling on the Amazon platform, but who ship all of their products into Amazon warehouses. And whenever somebody places an order for one of their products on Amazon, Amazon will then ship that product to the customer. That's very nice because then you basically only ship the product once into the Amazon warehouses, and then Amazon handles all of the individual shipments. Whereas over here, you have all of what is called merchant fulfilled sellers. And those are the sellers who don't send their inventory into Amazon. They keep that in-house, or they have some other fulfillment company that's supplying their products. But either way, Amazon is not shipping the product to their customers. They are shipping the product to their customers, or whatever company they've hired to do that work. So that's the difference between those two. Now, my recommendation is that you go FBA in most cases, because there are a number of benefits that are associated with being an FBA seller versus a merchant fulfilled seller. Most specifically, all other things being equal, if your seller metrics are similar, if your pricing is similar, the FBA seller is going to kind of get the nod from Amazon in terms of being listed in the buy box for that item. Basically, just what that means is when you pull up any listing on Amazon to purchase, oftentimes there are numerous sellers of that product that you could purchase from, but most Amazon customers don't actually even realize that. And so they just click add to cart or buy now. Well, having the buy box means that you are the seller that they would be purchasing from if they do that. So if they search for, fig bars and this listing comes up and they click add to cart, what that means is they are now purchasing that product from whatever seller got the buy box. And that rotates, it changes depending on the seller metrics and whatnot. But the point is, you have a better chance of getting the buy box if you are an FBA seller than you do if you're a merchant fulfilled seller. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now you can see here, down toward the bottom, it shows, it shows gross profit. Now right now, that is based on you selling as an FBA seller and selling it for $21. Okay. Now, if you click on a different price, like say this one here, then it would change your gross margin based on that selling price. Okay. And also based on whether that's merchant fulfilled or FBA. So it accounts for your FBA fees, your Amazon fees, and merchant fulfilled sellers have less fees on the Amazon marketplace than the FBA sellers because they're not paying Amazon for shipping. They're only paying Amazon a referral fee for being able to sell on their website. Okay, FBA sellers are not only paying the referral fee, but are also paying the fulfillment fees for Amazon to store their inventory, ship their inventory, handle all their returns, all of that sort of thing. So you can see that your fees are much higher under the FBA. But just remember, if you're a merchant fulfilled seller, it's not like those fees don't exist. You're just not paying them to Amazon, right? You still have to store the items, so you have to either pay for a warehouse or you have to pay some other company to store your items. You still have to ship the items, so either you're paying the post office or UPS or FedEx those dollars, or you're paying a fulfillment company to do it versus paying Amazon to do it. So it's not like those fees don't exist. They're just not being accounted for here in the app because it can't calculate those. You have to enter those. So what you would do is if you click on gross down at the bottom here, you can then enter your buy cost. Now, if you are a merchant fulfilled seller, you might include not only the cost of purchasing the product, but whatever additional fees are involved in that process that you're not paying to Amazon, but maybe you're paying somebody else. So in this case, my cost for one of these boxes of fig bars is actually $17 if I bought them at Costco like we do for our family. Well, if I bought it for $17 and if I click back on the FBA listing for $21, that means I would lose $8.51. So I'm not going to make any money buying these at Costco and selling them on Amazon. Okay, because you can see down here, down at the bottom, it shows my net after my buy cost is $8.51. Okay, now something important to point out here. Let's go back. I'm going to pull up my history and pull up some other item that I scanned when I was at the store the other day. Here's these Keen boots that were on sale. Now, they were on sale for, I believe, $80 at the store I was at. And you can see here at the bottom it says gross. Okay, the reason it says gross versus net is because we haven't entered in our buy cost yet. So you'll know if you've entered in your buy cost if it says gross or if it says net. If it says gross, you have not entered it in yet. And if it says net at the bottom, then it means you have entered it in. So if I was to, again, click on my gross profit number here, then I could type in my $80, click save, and now it tells me that my net profit is only $7.49. Well, that's not really so great, right? So that's why I did not buy these, was not going to send them into Amazon because there's not really much money to be made there. It gives you your ROI down here. You can see ROI 8.84%. Return on investment is what that stands for. Basically, that means if I paid $80 for the boots, and I only made at the end of it, my final profit after all expenses is going to be $7.49, then my return, my profit on my initial investment of $80 is only 8.84% of that initial investment. My initial investment was $80. My profit was only $7.49, which is less than 10% of that initial investment. That's really a pretty low number, and it's not what you really would want in most cases. Okay, so, but you can see here again, as before, it tells me my category, tells me my rank, tells me how many other sellers there might be, what the FBA price is, what the lowest merchant fulfilled price is. So it tells me approximately what my price might be if I was to sell it, especially if I want to sell it quickly. Now, of course, I don't have to sell it at this price. Let's say I send it in as an FBA seller and I decide to list it for $150, like say this guy here, 150, 160. It's possible if I'm willing to sit on them for just a little while that the sellers who are selling it at 119 might sell out of their inventory, and during the period while that inventory is gone, then my price at 159 might become the low price, and I might actually sell them at that price. So you can take that gamble, and in some cases, you would be well served to do so. And you can get an idea of whether that might be a good gamble or not if you come up here to the top. Up here, if you click on this little hamburger icon menu, you can get a list of other functions that Scoutify offers. One of them is called Keepa. Now, Keepa, what they do is they track the pricing of products on Amazon. They track sales rank on Amazon. And so it'll track whether Amazon is selling it, whether other third parties are selling it, whether they're FBA or not. And so you can get an idea here if you were to kind of zoom in on this a little bit. You can see this is a 3-month range, and they're showing the pricing. Now, for this particular product, it doesn't look like they have very effectively tracked the price. You can only see right here, you can see a buy box price on this product. It's that little pink diamond down there, okay? And that would indicate a price of just over $120, which is where it's priced right now. So this product, Keepa, isn't going to serve much purpose. The green lines on here indicate sales rank, and you can see that kind of hops around a little bit between about 20,000. You can see a sales rank of 20,000 all the way up to a sales rank of about 50,000, which isn't terrible in the shoes category. It's not stellar, but it's not too bad. So let's go back to a different product in my history and try to get the Keepa information on it so you can kind of see when it is valuable. Let's try these here. So this is another item that I scanned the other day, and there was some pretty good profit actually in this product, but let's again pull up the Keepa list. Okay, and for some reason it doesn't seem to be tracking. Normally there would be a purple, you can see right here new is purple, Normally there would be a purple line graph here, but it's not showing up. But what you can see though, these pink dots around the graph, these little pink diamonds, represent the price that got the buy box. Okay, so you can see here, you've got one up here, you've got one here, you've got one here, you got one here. All right, so looking at those, you can see that the price ranges anywhere from about $24 up to $30. Well, that's a difference of, $6, which on this kind of an item is a pretty significant difference in profit. So the point there is, let's say that currently the price was sitting down here, down in that $22 range, or $24 range. If that was the case, but you know that fairly frequently that price hops up here to 29, then you might be willing to send it in, set the price at 29, even though right now, maybe it was showing here, maybe it was showing that the FBA price was 24, but you know that fairly often that price hops up to this 29 price. You might send it in and price it at $29 or $29.95 and just wait and see if it sells through. Now, typically when I do that, I make sure that the low price on that list, so let's go back to Keepa, I try to make sure that even if it sits down here at this low price, down here at this $24 price, I at least am still going to break even, or maybe make a few bucks. That way, if it turns out that my gamble doesn't pay off and I don't really get any significant profit on it, at least I'm not losing money on it. And so you can, by using the Keepa history, you can really kind of avoid most of the situations where you're going to end up with a loss. It can happen sometimes. Sometimes you get a flood of sellers that jump on a listing and then the price just shoots through the floor. And unless you're willing to sit on that item for a number of months waiting for the price to come back up again, you may end up in a situation where you lose a little bit of money. But you can minimize those situations and the amount of loss on those situations by using that Keepa information to tell you what the previous selling history is, what the sales rank history is. Like maybe an item, you always want to check the Keepa history because it's possible to have an item where 17,000 rank in kitchen is phenomenal. But what if, for whatever reason, the reason that rank is so low is because Amazon recently ran a really low ball price on that product. And remember that sales rank is a relative comparison to other items in that category in terms of how quickly the product sells, how much volume sells through on that item. So in this case, there are 17,000 other items in the kitchen category that sell faster than this one. But there are millions and millions and millions of other products in the kitchen category that sell slower than this one, which is why 17,000 is a good rank. But if Amazon or any seller lowballs the price on an item, it's just like anything else. When the price goes down, more people buy it, right? So if more people are buying it, then there's more sell-through on that listing, which means by comparison to other listings on Amazon, it is selling faster, which means this sales rank drops. So what would often happen is, let's go back and let's look at that Keepa graph. So what would happen in that kind of a situation is you can see the sales rank kind of hopping around here. Well, what happens when a lowball price goes in is that your sales rank goes from way up here and just drops through the floor when that price goes on, or that price drop goes in. And then maybe it stays here for a little while the price is low, and then maybe it starts to hop back up a little bit, as the price, when the price increases. Now, of course, sales rank doesn't just spike straight up again. It takes a little time for it to climb. So what happens is you've got this steep decline. Let's draw this in again. You've got this steep decline here when the price drops. Then it kind of sits down here while the price is low. And then we've got this kind of gradual incline, right? Well, what if you happen to catch this item when it's sitting about right here on the graph? Okay? So the sales rank seems incredibly low, but in reality, it's normally much higher. Now in this case, my graph only goes up to about 35,000 on my sales rank, which is still really good in the kitchen category. But what if it went from like 5,000 to 500,000? Okay, and so for some reason this super lowball price drops it way down in sales rank. You happen to investigate this item when the sales rank is sitting really low, but normally when the product is priced, so you check it and the price is sitting up here at this $29. But just a few days ago, somebody was selling it for 10 bucks and the sales rank just dropped through the floor because they sold like thousands of them in a single day, right? So now the sales rank hasn't jumped back up yet, but the price has jumped way back up. So you're looking at it and going, man, I can sell this at $29.95, and the sales rank is awesome. I'm going to sell a bundle of them in a hurry. When it turns out that's not true, because at that price, it sells much slower than you think. The sales rank is off. So you always want to check that Keepa listing and check the history on the item to see what it's done for sales rank and for price. Now over here, you also have Camel. That is a similar service to Keepa. And so sometimes if the Keepa graph doesn't really show you the info that you're looking for, you can pull it up on Camel, and it may give you the information that you want. Because again, similar kind of service. And that's why they provide both of them in here, is because sometimes one service doesn't have the information, but the other one does. Okay, so that's the basics on how you use this. So basically you just walk into the store and you just start scanning barcodes. You just start looking for clearance items, looking for sale items, buy one, get one free, buy one, get two free, possibly even buy one, get one half off, although normally that's not going to be enough of a discount to make it worth it. Depends on the item, but certainly clearance items that are 50, 60, 75% off or more, those are really good items to look at. And honestly, do not pay any attention to whether you think that product looks like a good seller or not, because you honestly do not know. Remember, everybody else that's out there buying things does not have the same tastes that you have. So you might be looking at this and thinking, man, that is the god ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. Who in the world would buy that? And so you don't scan it. And then it turns out that you're the only person on the planet that doesn't like that. And if you'd have sent it in, you would have sold them in a few days for a huge profit. So do not shy away from scanning items that are items that you wouldn't personally buy, because there's a lot of other people out there that probably would. Okay. So just know that, doing retail arbitrage in this way is incredibly simple. That doesn't mean there's not some complications. It doesn't mean there's not some learning curve. It doesn't mean that you might not make some mistakes. But ultimately, if you're careful about the products that you buy and you make sure that the profit margins look really good, typically I'm looking for products where my ROI is at least 50%. And I really would prefer products where my ROI, my return on investment, is going to be more like 100%. So in other words, I'm going to make back just as much profit as I spent. Now, that doesn't mean I'm breaking even. That means I make the same amount of money that I spent. So I make, for instance, if I spent $100 for a product, then in order to have an ROI of 100%, that means after all of my expenses, once I sell the product for whatever price I sell it for, after my Amazon expenses, after I account for the initial expense, that initial $100 that I spent for the item, I need to walk away with $100 that I can put in the bank. That if I ended my business right now, right here today, that $100 is mine to keep because everybody's been paid. Okay? The product's been paid for, the fees have been paid for, all of my expenses has been paid for. I have $100 left. Okay? That would be 100% ROI. I profited the same amount of money that I initially invested in the product itself. Okay? So I really like to see 100% ROI or close, at least 50% ROI. And the reason for that, of course, is that it gives me a lot of margin for error. There are going to be errors. There are going to be times when you have kind of a brain fart and you forget to check the Keepa. and you get excited about it because the ROI looks terrific, and you just jump on it and you buy it, and you forget to check the details, and you end up sending a product in that turns out not to be as big a seller as you wanted, or it doesn't profit, or you lose a little bit of money, whatever. So if you make sure that the vast majority of the time your ROI is really high, then you can afford to absorb those mistakes. Okay? So that's the biggest thing about selling really any products on Amazon, no matter how you're doing it, is trying to keep your ROIs good so that you're not having those sorts of issues. But just kind of keep that in mind as you're looking at this as a business model, is that ROI is important for any business. ROI is important. A lot of businesses function on this idea that volume can trump ROI. I don't agree with that. I believe that there is a point at which, I don't care how much volume you're selling, if your ROI is too low, you're setting yourself up for failure, because eventually there's going to be a problem. There's going to be a blip on the radar that you end up having an expense that you didn't expect to have. And it could be a large one. And when that happens to a business that works on volume but really low profit margins, low ROI, typically that business ends up folding up shop, because they are barely, their margins are razor thin. And so as soon as they run into some issue like that, it throws the entire company into chaos. And that's not something that you ever want to have to deal with. You want to be in a situation where, worst case scenario, if the business ends up folding up shop, you're not in debt at least. You walk away with, with no debt. But if you're riding on debt, these low volume businesses typically are riding on debt. They're buying their product on credit, and then after the fact, when the product sells, then they're paying that credit off. Well, what happens if, something, let's say, it doesn't happen often, but let's say Amazon puts a restriction on your account. For some reason, something happens and they think that you've done, you sold something counterfeit or something. And so they briefly put a hold on your account, so you can't sell any product for the next 15 days. Well, how do you pay off your creditors then? How do you pay off that stuff when you can't sell any product for a couple of weeks or a month? Okay. If your ROI was good, if your margins were good, then you might be able to absorb that. It'll hurt. You won't like it. You're going to lose out on a lot of profit, but your business doesn't have to go under. So, again, there's some important pieces to this puzzle that you need to make sure you're paying attention to. And one of them is definitely maintaining good ROI, maintaining good profit margins, so that this business can be as profitable as possible, and so that you have a lot of margin, a lot of room for error, because there will be errors. You're not going to be perfect at this, especially when you start. And so make sure that you're preparing for that likelihood. So I think that's good for this video. I hope that gives you an idea of kind of how this app works and how similar apps work, and how you can use them to your advantage to really make sure that you're building a business that is profitable enough that not only are you going to do well, but you can absorb any mistakes that you might encounter along the way. So that's it for now. We'll see you next time.